Chile for about 20 years. I live in North Carolina, in New York and Miami. I am a video journalist. And the way I got into this was, actually, I wanted to study medicine when I was in high school. And I was preparing for the similar thing that we take there, similar to the SATs, and I was doing great, and I love biology, and everything was amazing. And then a week before taking them, I was like, I don't want to go to college for years, you know? So I freaked out a little bit. I had a little bit of crisis, and I was like, I don't know what to do. So I was checking some stuff that I had. Like I had some videotapes and from the family trips and things, and I started checking them. And I was like, okay. So the person that shot most of them, it's me. I remember having a lot of fun doing it. So why don't I do this for a living? So that's why I went to journalism school. And then when I was in journalism school, the thing that sucked is that my school didn't have anything. I mean, it was very basic, the video and photo aspect, but it became a really good writer. And then I was lucky enough to meet a professor that once we were working on a project, and one day he grabs like a little bag with a camera body, lenses, memory cards, and everything. He's like, go shoot. And I went and I shot, and then I came back, and we were going through the material, and he was just looking at it without saying anything. But basically, his face was saying, "This sucks," until like, okay, cool. And he said at the end, like, "What are you doing here? Go shoot more." So that's how I get it. I just practice. I'm not an amazing videographer. I just practice a lot, and I got better and better. And then I started working with, I've done stuff with the Washington Post, with the New York Times, with NPR, with Univision, where I currently work, with the UN, lots of things. So it's practice. So if you're interested in this, it's just mainly technique. The key is becoming a really good reporter and knowing how to talk to people, and how to find stories, and that's the key. What else have I done? Just to give you a little bit more context. So I've done a lot of work by myself, where I go to a place. First I report, I make phone calls, and then I hit the spot, and then I talk to people, and then I shoot a video on a little family or a subject, and then I did everything together, and then come back. Or I work with teams. Sometimes I have someone who produces the story. For example, with my wife, she's also a video journalist. We did a series for the New York Times, and she would basically produce most of the thing. And then we'll both shoot in the field and then edit it together. We also did a lot of stuff for about like 30 videos for National Geographic. And it was a very similar team effort, she would do a lot of the producing, then we'll both shoot together, and I'll do a little bit more of the editing. That was fun. Like National Geographic took me for 30 days to Patagonia with a group of gauchos, which are the cowboys over there, in the middle of nowhere, literally nowhere, to look for wild cattle. So it was super fun. 30 days on top of horse. I didn't know how to ride a horse. I kind of learned until I was actually being chased by a bull through a little forest, and the bull disappeared, but my horse kept going. I hit a branch, I fell on my camera, and I was out of commission for 2 days. Conscious and everything, but I couldn't move. The camera was fine, so it gave me, at least I could keep shooting the story. And then literally I just have to hop back on the horse and keep working. What else? I'm in a lot of disaster zones. I was in Chile in 2010, the 5th largest earthquake in history. It was pretty terrifying. But it's always nice to see like human nature, how after like a huge disaster, everyone's like going up again. I recently spent, total 3 months working on a project that looked into the effects of Hurricane Irma and Maria in the Caribbean. So let me see, I have the pizzas here. So we flew into around 8 islands in Florida. It was around 10,000 miles. We took 50 planes, 2 helicopters, and hundreds more in cars, boats, and kayaks. And we just got there to the spots. It was almost impossible. There almost all lines of communications were down. But people, whenever they had a little bit of connection, they were being really active in social media. So we contacted people either through Facebook, Twitter, and then just starting like gathering information, because the minute we hit a spot, we had some information, but we still needed to talk to a bunch of people. Just talk, and then making little connections, you know, that will get us to one spot to the other, because we didn't want to do what everyone was reporting, and we want to focus on human problems, not just numbers or death toll or destruction. So it required a lot of chatting with everyone. What else? One of the most rewarding things that I've done in the past years, I worked quite a bit with the UNHCR, which is the UN agency that deals with refugees. And I've been in refugee camps, in settlements. I've been in Jordan, in Azerbaijan. I met a ton of displaced families in Colombia, families from Syria that are everywhere in the world, even in Canada. And like listening to the problems they've been going through, their stories, and how they're dealing right now. And it's very sad. It's very sad how the state of things they are in the world, right? It's very sad that we are impacted and we see these things happening over and over and over. But the saddest part is sometimes is they don't focus on the human problem, but they focus more on destruction or whatever the problem that war is creating, or the political problem, but they're not facing, we're not focusing much on human nature and the human condition. So like when you get to those points, I feel very grateful that I'm able to actually show how families struggling, how they're going through their problems, and how they're succeeding in some ways. Or how when people see these projects, they're like, they realize that this is happening, and you can make like people take decisions that can actually help them. So that's the best part of this. You know, I remember a friend of mine saying, like, when you're a journalist, when you're a video journalist, you're in the front seat of reality. If there's no filter, you're seeing everything firsthand. And it's your duty to tell those stories, to make people know what's happening, you know? So try to convey as much human as humanly possible, so people can realize what's actually happening, not just in their neighborhood, but everywhere in the world, so they can take action and try to do good. Yeah, what else? But yeah, I mean, I remember talking to, I know you guys are working now in a series of mini documentaries, and like one of the most important things is people, right? Because we're going to be focusing on people or issues and the people behind them. And I remember I struggle. I'm very timid in general. It's really hard for me to get into a conversation. It was. Now I got better at it, but it was really hard. Or finding common points of just sit down and talk with someone. But again, keeps practice. I've found subjects for my stories here, making it easier in Craigslist, Facebook, Twitter, even easier in bars, in diners, a friend of a friend who knew someone, reading local newspapers, listening to radio, making cold calls, like finding, like stalking someone, like you looking for a certain topic or person, and you just go through everything. So go through social media, even to LinkedIn, and just do a cold call. Bathrooms, when we're in the island, we even tackled the Minister of Tourism in one of the islands to get access to Antigua, which was close to everyone. No one had been able to go in the island. You just gotta keep your ears open and chat, you know, and that's the key. The key for me for this type of work, or like what I'm trying to do, is like I don't want to replicate what everyone's doing. It's not that I want to feel special. It's just that it's being covered. Or if I see something very poorly covered, or a subject that is amazing and they're not doing a good story, I would go and re-interview that person and do a story based on that. But in general, I try to steer away from that, and like, that's information that I got, and I'm going to focus on something else. I'm going to try a different angle. So trying those things. You don't want, again, you don't want to do exactly the same thing they do. You want to have that angle, that something that's going to make people want to watch your story, you know, because there's a reason why you're working on that story. It's because it's important. I mean, that's how I see it. And I rely heavily on my instincts. Whenever I hear something and it's interesting, important, compelling to me, it's usually interesting, important, compelling to others. So that's what drives me to work on those stories. What else can I tell you? I don't know, man. Being a journalist is one of the most fun things you can do, and most stressing, because, yeah, again, it's amazing. You're in the front seat of reality, right? And you get to experience all these things firsthand, and like, you're the first one to see them and the first one to experience them and everything. And that's a big issue. You're the first ones to see them. You're the first one to experience them. There's a huge toll, mentally and physically on you. Physically, because you're traveling all over the place and you're working constantly, hours and hours, and then because you're the first filter for these things, and you see how terrible things are going, but at the same time you get to see how amazing things are going. I remember being in Dominica, and after being in 4 different islands in the Caribbean, everything was destroyed, and everything would finally make it land there. And I remember my eyes couldn't close. I just wanted to cry. Everything was destroyed. Everything was in the ground. Everything. Like, everything. It's unimaginable. When I say everything, everything down. And like, I couldn't handle it. It was like, this is so sad. This is too much. And I was ready to like burst into tears. And then I just see people walking, walking with the buckets of water, saying hi to the neighbor, like helping them with machetes, cut and break through places and everything. It's like, wow, this is just, I mean, if they can take it that way, if they can go through these problems with a smile on their face and like making the best out of it, that's it. And then for a second, I was like, this is it. Like, this is my preconception of being everything super sad and like terrible. No, this is what we need to focus. Everyone's focused on the rest. We need to focus on this. This is an important thing. People are moving on. People are getting their act together and they're doing work. They're not sitting and waiting. They're actually working for everything, helping each other. They almost have nothing, and they're sharing that nothing with everyone. And that's it. That's the story. That's the angle. I know it probably sounds super basic, or you probably want to follow on the coverage then, but that's what everyone was focusing. And it was just driving me crazy. It was affecting me. But then we found this amazing family in Dominique, and that was it. Like, when the worst happens, the best comes out of people. And that's why we learn, and that's why we try to focus. And hey, my puppy's here. But yeah, and in the past 2-3 years, I veered a little bit more into doing more editing of people's stuff, not just working on my own things and shooting and editing, but trying to edit a little bit more, because life has changed a little bit. I have a 2.5-year-old, and I want to spend more time at home. So being able to edit and work on other people's work allows me to be at home, and it's pretty amazing because I get to work with pretty amazing people. I mean, we're talking about National Geographic photographers, people that have been awarded. They're amazing, and I get to get their stuff and try to make it even better by editing it down. So that's what I'm doing right now, and I would love to hear any questions that you have for me, or anything you want to ask.
What elements do you look for when you're developing a story?
Well, like I was saying, first, for a story, I look for something that is interesting, right? So if it's not interesting to me, I need to find something interesting. And it can be anything. It can be a human thing. It can be the most boring thing, but it connects to everyone, that it's money and economics. It can be anything, but when I'm doing, it depends on the medium that I'm working on. So if I'm working on video, it needs to be a visual thing. If I'm going to be doing a video story or a mini documentary or long form, whatever, but that has video and there's no action going on, I mean, by that, I mean, there's no visual element, I cannot do a video story. That's it, right? But that's technically. In general, I look for emotion, any sort of emotion, whether it be drama, it be happiness, it'll be excitement, anything that will draw me, because we're drawn to that. Like, we're not just drawn to pretty pictures, but we're drawn to emotion. That's what takes us to the movies. We want to see something fun, something that will scare us, something that will excite us in any way, anything that will activate our senses. That's what I try to do.
When you're filming to make a documentary, how much footage do you film compared to what actually makes it into the final cut?
So, I mean, it depends on the final product. There's one thing that I always try to do, which is you respect the story, right? So you're not gonna be saying, I need to do a 3-minute piece and that's it. I'm gonna let the story play the amount it needs to be played. I'm gonna let the story run the time it needs to be run to be told well, because that's key. You cannot constrain yourself by time and say, oh, I'm gonna do a 2-minute story, I'm just gonna stop it there. So that said, there are times, let's see, for this project that we spent in the Caribbean, it was like 2.5 months traveling, which a ton. Just one, the documentary, that it was 10 minutes, about 10 minutes long. We shot for 5 days. Let's say 4 hours a day, 5 hours a day total time, because you start and stop. So that's 25 hours to 10 minutes. But then again, it depends on what you're shooting. It depends on the story. The key, I mean, memory cards, they're so cheap. Hard drives are so cheap. Just shoot. And then there are many times that you discover things in the edit. If you're constrained by the amount of time that you need to shoot, it's really hard to come up with a good story. The key is to be there in the important moments. So just to give you an example. So like, I try to be there when they wake up. I try to be there when they go to bed. I tried, if they're going to be getting a letter in the mail, I try to be there. If they're going to be taking their kids to school, I try to be there. If anything, any single moment that happens in their life that could have some element, I try to be there. But like I said, it depends. I mean, but usually, for example, the easy thing is an interview, right? We do hour and a half long interview for a 3-minute piece. It depends. It's just a chat. An interview needs to be a chat. That way you'll get the right answers. Because when you start talking, when you start asking questions, you're going to get an answer right away. And you want the person to actually think about the questions you're asking, right? You want them to not deliver whatever's on the tip of their tongue. You want them to think about it and deliver the question. That sometimes it takes some time just to chat, and that's why sometimes the interviews go a little bit long, and you'll end up with an hour or 2 hours or whatever, and then you're gonna distill it into a couple of minutes.
Do you have any tips for low budget productions, like just anything that helps improve the quality?
Yes, make it pretty. What do you guys work with?
A lot of us are on our iPhones, so
Yeah.
Awesome. So the iPhone, any iPhone or any cell phone, I mean, they're great. They're amazing little cameras. Just be sure when you're shooting, right? Let's say you're shooting right here. Try to use the screen. I'm shooting right here, but then the iPhone will give me either the background super bright or the foreground super bright. So what I do is hit on the screen, and it'll come up with a little square around it, right? and it's gonna say AE lock. That's audio exposure lock. And then while you're holding, you can bring the brightness up or down, and that's key. The same thing, by doing that, if you hold it a little bit longer, you can set the autofocus there. Sometimes it struggles because it's a tiny camera, but it struggles to focus foreground or background. So again, you just hold it there until you're sure it's in focus, and then you can move it. Another thing is that it always bumps a lot, right? So if you can come up with something that will hold it, even if you have like a stick with rubber bands, something that will let you grab it like this, instead of holding it like this, it'll be great. Like anything that will keep your image stable. What else? Audio, if you manage to plug in a microphone, that'd be great. Because what happens, for example, we're doing an interview, and I'm holding it like this. Let me move back. I'm holding it like this, but you're right here. And what's the problem? That I'm next to the microphone and you're very far away. So the audio, my audio is going to be crystal clear, but your audio is not going to be that great. So getting a little microphone, even using this, could work. Anything like that. But just keep it stable. Don't shoot backlit. So if there's a bright, like you're seeing right there, you see? You have a big window on your back. That's not great. I mean, it's well exposed in your faces, but every time that I see white in a picture, the human eye gets drawn to it. So you got to remove a backlit image like that, because otherwise my eye is going to go there, and instead of focusing in the person, I'm going to be focusing back, and I want you to focus on the person. So that's key. So you can just twist a little bit. And then just do a lot of what it's called sequencing. Whenever you record any action, what you want to redo is at least get a wide, a medium, and a tight shot, right? So let's say a super boring action, but someone's typing on a screen, right? Typing on a computer. You're going to go take 10 feet away and shoot a wide shot where you see the computer and them typing. Then you're going to go medium shot where you can see the person with hands on keyboard. And then you're going to go shoot, again, the hands on the keyboard, then the eyes looking at the screen, and then the screen. So you just shot one scene in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shots. If every shot lasts around 2-3 seconds, when you put it together, that's 18 seconds. That's 15 seconds of nice footage that you can put in one sequence, you know, instead of having one wide, boring shot. And by shooting sequence, you can get in and get out without a problem. Like you can go from a super fun tight shot of someone typing, and then you can go outside and there's not going to be a jump. If you go from a wide shot of the person looking at the screen to another wide shot somewhere else, it's gonna, your eye is going to jump. So having those details, it allows you to go from one place to the other. You can use like Chinese lanterns. Those are great for light because it softens the light. So if you want to illuminate an interview, you can just use some sort of light like this that has a little screen. Just, you see how it's nice? And it adds a little bit for an interview. And the key is that it has a screen, so it softens the light a ton. If you have the light bulb by itself, it's going to be completely blown out. I don't know. The key is to have fun. That's the most important part. If you're not having fun, you're not going to be transmitting that. Or you're not interested, you're not going to be transmitting that to your subject. And then your subject is not going to be enjoying the situation, and you won't be able to get the right footage or the right answers.
My question is, what has been one of your favorite stories to do, and about how long did it take you to film that one story that you really loved?
Just the one. So I think I sent this one. It's called Rope in the Wind in Texas. It was at the time, the largest wind farm in the world, because it was in Texas and everything's bigger in Texas. And the beauty is that absolutely nothing was happening. So it was extremely challenging. That was a 4-day trip, and like nothing's happening, nothing is moving. There was not even wind those days. But the key was, I mean, again, as you learn more, it was that that little town has been like stuck in time. Businesses were closing, nothing was moving until the wind industry came to town, and then people started adopting it a little bit. So, but you see this town in decay, you would see a lot of the town in decay, but then little things that will show you that things were starting to move on. So it was great because you could see and you could show the decay, and then at the same time how everything started to move on. So I had the contrast right there. It was, I didn't have to say it visually, it conveyed that information. And it was really fun because it was extremely challenging. That was key. And I think it came out really well. It was super cinematic. It's pretty. The main subject, Cliff, is amazing. He's like a real Texas accent, very deep voice. And I just loved it. It was so much fun. So that was 3-4 days there in Roscoe. And then it was probably a week or 2 weeks editing. 2 weeks. We had plenty of time for that. Yeah.
What kind of equipment do you use for your documentary?
Okay. Anything and everything that I have at hand. So let's see, when we were in Chile, we had a TV show, and we had 2 cameras and like a 5D, so a photo camera with very nice quality, and then we had a GoPro that just came out, and then we had an iPhone 4. So we played with those cameras, and then we edited it all together and make it look good. There are times that I've only been able to bring my cell phone, so I shot stuff with just my cell phone because of limitations. I couldn't bring any more gear. There's other times that I've flown with 2 Pelican cases, which are these hard cases, like, let me see if I can make it fit, this big, huge, filled with gear. But I usually shoot with a Canon camera or a Sony camera that are called the C100 or the FS5, which is a camera that has interchangeable lenses and it has a built-in microphone, which is great quality. And then I can shoot slow-mo, I can shoot whatever I want. So I travel with one of those cameras, bunch of lenses, lots of batteries, lots of memory cards. And then in the past year, I've gotten really good at flying drones. Every now and then, which are not mine, they're my company's, so I get to use them, play with them. I even crash them, which is great because I learn, and then they get to fix it without me paying it. What else? GoPros are super fun, and they're pretty cheap because you get a beautiful image and you can put it on the water and everything. Yeah, anything you have at hand, everything works. You just gotta learn how to, like I said, if you avoid backlit situations, the picture and the quality is gonna be pretty decent in any camera. Just be sure there's a little bit of natural light, and that's it.
How do you make the landscape pop, like with the viewer's eye?
Like, are you referring to something in particular that you saw, or?
Yes, the video with the windmills, about like how the sunset and the windmills and with the city or with the small little town. How did you make that? Like, how did you make that pop? Like, how did you make that? How would you say catch the viewer's eye?
Okay. So landscape is super simple, but it's hard. So, like, just sit down for a second, sit outside, and see how you're looking at things. And you'll see that when you're in a wide environment, like your view, instead of focusing in just one little spot, starts to expand, right? And you see more and more and more, and you actually are aware that you can see from here to here. And it's like, wow. So you're gonna try, basically what I'm saying is like, you're gonna go for a very nice wide shot that shows everything. So it can be, you can put the camera in a very low level. That's what I did there. And then make everything, I mean, it's Texas, right? So everything's big in Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas. So by putting the camera very low and using a very wide lens, so having a wide field of view, you get to see this enormousness everywhere. But in general, you shoot wide. And hopefully you have a little bit of a human element, so you see it for perspective, right? I remember there's one of those shots where you see just a field, 2 towers, and then you see the Jeep, the little tiny Jeep, and it's like, wow, those things are huge. So anything that will give you perspective, anything that will make it pop. I also try to work with the horizons. I never shoot with a horizon level at like the center. I always bring it down if I want to show what's above the horizon, very important, like those towers or the sky. Or I'll bring the horizon up if I want to show what's important on the ground. So if I'm shooting a huge field or something and what's happening in the dirt or whatever's happening here, it's important. I'll leave less sky and I'll focus more. Like I was in the Great Canyon, and like the sky is beautiful, but this much of the screen would be using the sky, and everything else was just like the canyon, because that's what you want to show, right? But shoot wide as you can, and then that'll give you the awe. Like you just set people in a very interesting place, and you shoot it at a very nice time. Like shoot it very early in the morning, when the light starts to hit, and shoot it very late in the afternoon when you get that, like the sunset, and you get that golden hour, which makes everything beautiful. And then try to include a lot of shadows, anything that'll give you a sensation of being there. That's what I would say.
Okay. What is the most challenging about producing documentaries?
For me, it's getting past the point that, okay, I did my research and I have a list of people that I need to contact, and actually contacting them. For me, it's a struggle. Like it's really freaking hard. I can write an email, I can do Facebook, I can do stuff, like making that cold call for me is extremely hard. And I could have everything ready to go, and I could eventually procrastinate for days, just like thinking about that phone call, because I fear the no, and it's terrible, and I'm super weak at it. And usually I just said, the heck with it. I just grab the phone and dial it, and everything goes well. Or I get a no, and what's the worst thing? Just find another subject. You just do something else. But that's the hardest thing for me, like going past that. Because once I pack, once I plan or don't plan, everything, shooting is fine. I feel fine. I love being with people one-to-one. I'm like, that's my forte, I think. I'm a decent shooter. I can do decent photos, but I think my forte is like hanging out with people. Like I can be anywhere. I can hang out with anyone. But it's really hard for me to get to that point of making that phone call to get the full access. And it's terrible. That's why I usually get some people to help me, or if I do it, I just say, what the heck, and go for it. Other than that, I mean, I practice enough. I know the camera. I know what to shoot. If I don't know what I'm going to be shooting, I just do research. I check stuff that is being shot in YouTube, in Vimeo. I read. So like I try to have as much information as I can for when I go on the field. Stuff there, it's easy. For me, the hard part is just doing that little jump.
What is one mistake most filmmakers make regardless of their experience?
The worst thing that people do, for me, I'm a journalist. So the worst thing that people do for me is setting up things. Like asking people to do stuff on camera, asking people to redo things because you're altering reality. Like if someone did something and you didn't get it, too bad, it's your fault. Like you weren't fast enough, you weren't ready, you can ask people, what are you gonna do today? Oh, can you guide me through the process? Oh, okay. But you cannot ask someone to repeat an action. That's just terrible. Or ask someone to pose or to do something. You're telling them, you're not a director. I mean, I'm not a director. I'm filming what's happening. I'm documenting. So that's a big struggle that I have, because most people, I'm not going to say most, a lot of people in this field think that it's completely fine. And maybe it's fine for them to alter the situations or to make people do things so they can get a better shot or a prettier shot. But I think that's part of the challenge. Like we're documenting, we're trying to be a fly on the wall. We're not altering the reality. So what That's what I think. A lot of them, even the most experienced, do that. It's just they make people do things that they're not supposed to do or that they already did. So that's bad for documentary. If you're working on TV, if you're working in fiction, that's fine to direct. But altering reality, it's really bad for me. So that's one big mistake. And then just little dumb technical things that you've done this for. I've done this for say 18 years and I still make mistakes. Like, I don't know. I forgot to hit record. I shot this whole scene beautiful and I never noticed that the red thing wasn't working. You know, we all do stupid things and it happens. We just learn from it. Yeah.
All right. How do you know you have done the best to your ability to shoot a project?
Because at the end of the day, I'm exhausted. And you feel it, you know? Like when you work for something, you feel it in your body, you feel it in your head, like you're done. Like, I've thought it so many ways. Like, I've been in the same room for 8 hours and I've shot every single angle. I've asked every single question. I did everything. Like, that's tiring. So you can feel it in your body and in your head. By the end of the day, you've done the best you can. And then when you get to the editing room and you're putting together your story and you see if there's something missing, you just got to go back on that horse and call them again and see if you can get a little bit more access and get the rest. So you can make that story work, you know, like these people are giving you their time. They're opening their houses. They're showing you how fragile they are. Like, they're allowing you to shoot everything. The worst thing you can do is shoot a crappy story. Like, you got to do it right. Can you imagine that? You give someone access for 4 days to everything in your life, most things. Like, you're so vulnerable. And then you get a shitty product. Sorry for the word, but like, that's not, you gotta honor those person. Like, they're giving you time, they're giving you moments, they're sharing their lives with you so you can put them together and show this story. So that's what you have to do, you know. And if you don't feel when you're working on your story, when you're editing, that you don't have it, like, you need to talk to them. It's like, I'm sorry, I didn't do my job right, I screwed up, and this is a very important story. And I'm just missing this, because otherwise, like, you gave me all this and I messed up, but I really want to make it work. And this would be great. Can we make it happen? Do you think I could go again? And then you just do it again until you get it right. And then, like I said, you'll feel it. Like, I get a lot of tension in my shoulder or my lower back. Like, I feel at the end of the day, when you disconnect for a second, like, you feel the pain. And, you know,
how do you fit hours of footage into a few minutes?
You just make it really, 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 really fast and you push it. No, you just get the best out, you know? Like, this is a soup, right? You're making a soup and you have 80 ingredients. Is everything going to work in there? No. Like, I don't know. You're not going to put honey in a soup. And you have it, you shot it. It's one of those many hours that you shot it, but it's not going to work. So you got to put the best stuff in there. So how do you build a story? How do you make it work? You put the best at the beginning, you put the best at the middle, and you put the best at the end. You're going to show the best of your best. And how are you going to do that? First, I grab all the hours or days or minutes or seconds that I shot, and I put them on the timeline or whatever you're looking at, and I look at everything. I either look at it real time, which will take, if I shot 8 hours, 8 hours, or at least I fast forward a little bit, but while looking at the image. And I make notes. I have this, I have this, I have this, I have this. And then I do a second run and I start pulling things that will matter. So I did the interview and we touched these topics. So these images will help. So I look for those images. Is this good? No, this is terrible. Go to the next one and just start pulling the best out of that. And regardless of how well you shoot, like in an hour, you're still gonna get just a couple of minutes out of good stuff, you know? So you just pick. First, you cut thick. Like, I'm not gonna need this. You go with an axe or a sword, get it out. And then you go, at the end of the day, you're with a scalpel, like cutting thin. Like, this is important, this is good, I'm gonna need this. Throw the rest.
So we only have a couple minutes left, so this will be the last question. But in your opinion, what do you want to accomplish from storytelling when you use someone's voice to interview them rather than writing it down and typing it out for people to read?
Well, that's what I do. I mean, it's easier to write. It's easier to make people, to put voices in people, but there's nothing like a story being told by the subject of the story. Like, there's no way to convey emotion. Like, you have to be an actor to be able to tell things the right way. No, there's no way that you, by writing a line, will be able to convey what that person went through, the problems, the happiness that I was going through a situation. It's like, it's their words, it's their story. You're privileged to tell their story. It's so challenging. It's so hard because it relies on you. It relies on making you the right questions. It relies on getting that connection with the subject. Like, you are having a conversation. You're not just throwing questions. You're having a conversation in which this person is opening their mind, souls, everything, and letting you into their lives. So adding another voice, another thing, you'll destroy that whole illusion. It's a beauty. I mean, it's a story. Like, we pay for this. We go to the movies. We read stories in the first person because we're interested. This is human connecting with humans. You know, I don't want a third person. I don't want something in the middle. I want to talk to you, and me as an spectator, as a consumer of that product, I want to hear the story directly from him. And that's all that matters. And that's how we connect with stories. And that's the beauty of, like, first person. Like, that's the beauty of documentaries, this style, because it's, in a way, I mean, I'm filtering, but it's in a way I'm a filter. I'm getting the full reaction, the full content from that person directly to me.
Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to us and answer our questions.
Thank you, guys. Whatever you need, please write me. It's been fun, and I love doing this. And if I can help you in any other way, let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Bye.
Then we got